settled. But hey guys, how you guys doing? If you're not in the right place, then you're not in the right place. But this is ACM. This is our second general meeting with the winter quarter. I know like numbers start fizzling down, but hopefully we'll get them back up. But some quick announcements. All the yellow right now has already been done, but this is our current week. Tomorrow we have no events, but on Friday we have free food, always at the club room, so please come out. I know a bunch of people here sometimes come out, but it's free food, so just come. We also did, this week, we did a data science workshop with David leading that, and it was Serbi, yeah. Serbi and Rohit leading that, but you're part of the team, love that. But we did a really good data science workshop, and that always carries on from each week. So if you miss something, make sure you reach out to Serbi, because she'll probably get you caught up. Yeah, you'll catch people up. There you go. Yeah. So if you want to learn more about data science, please come out to that. And then we also did. We're also doing a Discord bot workshop series. So if you're interested in making Discord bots and want a place to ask people about questions about how to make a Discord bot, and also just like get taught how to make one, please come out to that. All of these are in the club room, so you know where that is. Also, Cindy just came in, and there's pizza, so if you guys want to get pizza, go ahead, go for it. But yeah, and then also this is next week, same thing, data science workshop, Discord bot workshop, free food on Friday, no general meeting tomorrow or next week. But I think the big thing that I want everyone to know is that we have ACM general election or board elections this quarter. So please, if you want to do what David and I do, and help out Cindy who came in, please check out our general elections forms. This is just like that form that you're going to get right there is the form to sign up. So if you're not 100% sure, look at the form, scroll through it. On Friday, please come out and ask some of our officers if you are interested in a position, you want to ask them what they do specifically, please go out there. But yeah, all these slides are going to be posted. Thank you. All these slides are going to be posted, but yeah. Open board meetings on Saturdays at 12. If you are interested in joining the board and you want to figure out or see what it takes to be a part of the board, come out to the open board meetings where we plan out all the weeks, have discussions, all the fun stuff that you get for being a part of the board. But that's where it is. And yeah, we're gonna start off with our GM. That's supposed to be GM too, but that's besides the point. This is social impact tech. So I want this GM to kind of be a guiding stone on what you can do with your CS degree, because I know a lot of us are like really focused on our career, but there's also other things you could do with your CS degree, like help out nonprofits. That is something they should definitely take in mind, because with a CS degree, you have a lot of knowledge and ability to do things that can help change the world. And so with that aside, we have our two panelists here, Mr. Jeffery Husam and Jeffery Zamora, and I'll let them take it away. Tell me when to press click. But yeah, click?
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay. So, hi, my name is Jeremy Husam. I'm a UCR grad back in '87, computer science, and so it's fun coming back and talking with the students as an alumni. I chose this picture because since there's social impact, this has to do with the United Nations. I was actually there. There's no audience, so it's just empty, it's just a photo op. But I was actually working on a project to help them with a disaster building assessment application, and so it was a lot of fun and kind of ties into the theme of a social impact, because it runs into the thread with Jeff, who has been my best friend for a long time. We met at at the orientation, UCR orientation, way back when. And so we've been friends for over 30 years. But I'm a retired Microsoft solution architect. I was with the Office of the CTO. It's really just an ivory tower for people with services and so forth. I led the worldwide application development estimation team and processes. So anytime that we had to do a project worldwide, it had to go through my team to make sure the estimates were right and done correctly. And so they were $1 million projects. And so this is important that we got it right, because if you make a mistake, you could be spending a lot of time and effort and reporting to the CTO and why it didn't work out. And then I led a lot of dev teams for large enterprise customers. The last ones was the NBA. I don't know if you guys watch the NBA on your cell phones, but the latest application is what my team built out. And the other one is the NFL, which, if you guys are familiar with the surface on the sidelines, you see those blue tablets, that's the project that I led. So I have a wide range of experience working with these types of customers, and they are nonprofits, by the way, but not what we're thinking with our typical social impact nonprofits. Hand it over to Jeff.
So yeah, Jeff Zamora. Jeremy mentioned, we're both UCR grads from late 80s actually. So we have most of our career behind us at this point, at least our corporate sort of working career, and now hopefully a bunch of nonprofit work and ways we can help the community and give back ahead of us. So I have a bit of a different trajectory than Jeremy. I spent a lot of time in consulting. I work with a variety of different startups, both in financial and medical, and about 20 years ago I settled in on automotive. I started working really specifically with data back then, and I really enjoyed working with mobile devices back way before the iPhone. And so pairing automotive and what you could do with those devices really opened up an interesting career path for me. Kind of took that over the last 10 years, startup that I was with. We ended up growing that company, working with lots of partners in the automotive space, and really was able to take that and take it to cars.com. And that was the big thing this year or last year was that acquisition. It was a lot of piloting we needed to do to get it through all of the hoops. Yeah, I guess that's basically it. You can go to the next slide. So yeah, as I just mentioned, right, we're really looking now how can we give back to the community, especially some of the knowledge that we've gained over the years, right? And sort of as a lead-in, one of the things, unrelated to software in a way, one of the things Jeremy and I did for 15 years, was run a mistletoe company in our spare time. It was a very strange thing to get into. It was a holiday business, and we ended up being one of the larger mistletoe suppliers in the United States until 2020, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I think 2019.
Somewhere, yeah, right in there. And one of the things we bumped into when we were doing that was that people would call us at that time of year asking for donations for either what they were doing at school or fundraisers for maybe their child that was sick, fundraisers they were doing for an organization called Smile Train, which would do facial cleft palate surgeries in third world countries. And so we started donating our product to those groups so that they could sell and raise even more money. And I think that was sort of our introduction to that nonprofit side. We really enjoyed being able to give back. And since then, we've been talking about ways that we can really make more of an impact, especially with the knowledge that we've built up over our careers, right?
Yeah.
One thing that we feel that we can really bring to organizations, nonprofits, is just the ability for them to optimize what they're doing and scale that work, right? They're usually poorly funded. Honestly, they might be pretty small. There's a lot of people working lots of hours without the tools that they need to really, run their projects. So it's pretty easy to, once you find a willing partner, to step in and be able to work with them to help, take a look from a consulting perspective, look at what they really need, point out incremental solutions to improve their business. And really, in a nutshell, that's what we've been trying to focus on.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add to that?
Sure. I think one of the things that experience working with you in the mistletoe company is that when we usually go out to a project or so, I would always call Jeff and say, well, what do you think about this? The example would be working up in Redmond, Microsoft, and I was building something that was going to take a report and convert it to Excel. And so I go, Jeff, what do you think if we did it with, the compiler theory that we know, like Alexa and the Yak and all of that stuff. So we did apply that, and he gave me some ideas on how to do this. So the same thing applied when I went to the UN. That's why you saw that picture there. I came back and I go, they're building this thing from scratch over and over and over again. And we were, I think, sitting at a bar. And the bartender's listening. I said, what are you guys trying to do? Solve world hunger? Well, not quite. We were trying to build a system that we can have people go out and take pictures, take assessments of buildings that were in a disaster, hurricanes, earthquakes, whatever, so that they can report to the government what buildings should be taken care of first. So it could be hospitals, generators, those types of things that had broken down or destroyed, and they need to focus on that. But every disaster that the UN had to encounter, they would have to rebuild the system over and over again. What if we took the DevOps processes that we knew, build out those VMs, build out the database, and reuse them over and over again? What type of infrastructure do we need to drop in? We need cell servers, generators, all those things to get us started and up and running. And so that was exciting to me. And so those are the things that we could take technology and make a difference and have that social impact. And so those types of ideas kept on bouncing between us over and over again until I think I retired. And I wanted
that was a big help. Yeah.
And I wanted to do something with my time. And so I think we could go to the next slide.
Right. So out of all those conversations and the work we did up to that point, led us to form an organization called Engineering for Good. And we, through a few contacts at UC Riverside, were able to put together a program, pitch it to some of the folks here, and really build a process to work with students at UC Riverside to identify nonprofits that were in need of help, put together a process that was really built to allow students to interact with those clients, the nonprofits, and focus more on requirements gathering and quickly building things out using low or no code environments. Very incremental sprint-like process so that the customer could see the work on a weekly, bi-weekly basis, and just really try to push that interaction between the students and the customers, and not just be heads down buried in a pile of code, So that was really the core of our design goal. We'll get into a bit of how we were able to accomplish that with our first project, but yeah, I think that's the second bullet point there really talks about the goal, right? I think we wanted to be able to give real world experience to students working with the shelter in Ireland, which we'll talk about in a minute, or other organizations. And the great thing about nonprofits is once you show you have a process, I mean, there are a lot of nonprofits that need help. They're constantly raising their hands saying, I need a way to be able to take this data that's in paper and turn it into something we can view, on the web, or take like a training process and automate it. So there's so many different things that can be done. And yeah, anything else you want to add to that one?
Yeah, but I'd like to ask the audience, how many people have actually written software, production type software, or had customer experience? Could you raise your hands? Vince, you should raise your hands.
Yeah, what's
I'm
up with
raising my
that?
hand. I'm raising my hand.
You can raise a little higher.
A little higher to
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, back there.
Right, if you consider customers like my family, yeah.
I don't like those calls. Those are support calls. So,
oh wait, yeah?
Are you talking about customer service in general?
customer, not customer service, like a customer that you actually deliver a project or a solution for them, and you gather requirements, and they're using your software.
Yep.
So it's a different experience, different world. And so, Vinz, I don't know if you want to share any of your thoughts on how that is slightly different, because what we're trying to offer is the ability to give that experience to CS students that you normally wouldn't get. And you're actually working with the customer, and the customer's meeting with you on a weekly basis.
Yep.
And so that's a huge differentiator than what I came out through with computer science, and I had nothing going into it. Where
Right.
you might have had more experience because you were doing more consulting.
Yeah, it's because I started off more in a consulting environment, and which is great. That's the thing I really loved about pairing software to these regular interactions with folks like in the field and their businesses, trying to help them. So this is an extension of that.
Yeah, well, what I will say for making a product for somebody instead of like for this blank entity like grade or anything like that, right? Like actually getting that feedback from the person. We have one-on-one meetings with the customer every single week, and sure, you don't have something to show every single time, but just seeing their face and seeing them like be excited about what you're making like every single week is like, that's way more motivation than like an A or like a GPA. And so making something for somebody and it's like actually tangible and it's like impacting their lives, it's making their life easier and whatnot. It's a completely different thing than just making something for a grade. And also like maybe even, well, I'll say like making something for just like a business in general, right? There's like a difference there when you're making something for a business who we're trying to, their main goal is to make money, but if you make something for a nonprofit that their main goal is to help people, help dogs, help like the world in general, it's like night and day in my opinion. But that's just from me. But yeah, that's my take there.
Yeah, so really our goal, as we've been talking about, is just to help those nonprofits by the technology that we've selected and working with the students. And we mentioned this idea of a low or no code approach to the projects that we do. Again, we chose to try to structure the projects so that there's not a lot of time. I mean, Vinz, you might think differently. There's a lot of time still coding, but it wasn't 100% coding. I mean, what would you say, just from your experience, what was the ratio of customer time versus coding time?
Coding time was probably, I'll say like 70, and like customer time was 30 for sure.
Yeah.
But that coding time, it wasn't pure coding, because with a no-code solution, it's just planning out like where you want your buttons and whatnot instead of just, like messing around in CSS and HTML and just trying to make it look right. But with the no-code solutions, like it is right because you literally drag it and it's there, right? So yeah, definitely 70-30, and like the 30% was the customer.
Great. So yeah, I mean that's in line with what we want. We want to just reduce the amount of time coding. We want to, at the same time, introduce students in the program to like common DevOps approaches, agile development practices, things that really, in our experience, have helped make our project successful in our lives, but do it in a way that doesn't consume all the time. Because again, like you just heard Vinz say, our goal is to really to maximize the time with the customers.
Yeah, I think one of the things that may not have come out on the slide is that we want to make sure that when we come away from this project, they have working software. And if we spent our time just in like C++ or any of the lower level code and not using a platform or low code approach, we would probably not get something delivered to the customer. So basically the solution is end to end. We have a front end, we have a database, we have reports, and we have authentication, we have security, all that's built into the platforms so that we're not spending our time building it from scratch over and over again and so forth. So we can deliver an actual working solution within, I would say, 2 quarters. I think that was approximately what we're trying to aim for, which is nice, and then we're enhancing it every so often.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
Something I want to add was just don't like count out like no code and low code solutions like in general, just because people tend to like over engineering things because they're like, oh, I want to feel like a coder, I want to like do a bunch of stuff in like the terminal and stuff, but it's like you don't have to do that. You can literally just go and make a no-code solution that will be as efficient or even more efficient because you have more free time now than just like messing around in code. But the no-code solution will just get it done for you faster and with the same exact results. So definitely don't count those sort of solutions out.
And I think where the brain power was leveraged is not so much in the coding, but more of the architecture. How do you structure things? Where are the components living? where are we pulling our caching data, how many round trips are we doing, how's our authentication models. Those are the things that, from an architectural perspective, is super important and can make and break a solution. So while coding is great, those concepts and being able to do those types of things to optimize the code or optimize the solution and where things live is more as important as the actual code itself.
And I would add one thing that we've spent a lot of time on is trying to build these solutions for folks that have zero budget. Like, how do you do it in a way that doesn't require even $15 a month? You know, I mean, I would say right now, it's still for MADRA in particular, like there's zero cost, right? And again, it's built in such a way that the folks that have their nonprofit maybe as part of like a part-time job, non-paid, they're able to take the project, pick it up, be able to make changes to it, and take it over and take ownership of it.
So remember who your target audience is, because you might not own the code forever. You build it for them, you're going to have to hand it over to them. Are you going to give them all the best practices in C++, or are you going to give them a way to easily use a GUI or WYSIWYG way of building and be more self-sustaining? And so part of it is, in this whole process, is to try to make this an open source solution where any for example, any organization, nonprofits that's similar can take that and apply it themselves. So we want to empower nonprofits with whatever we're building. And additionally, can we do knowledge transfer to these IT organizations that might not be super technical, but they would have enough information to just keep the lights running and make some modifications here and there. So I think most of my time has been a lot on doing the knowledge transfer for MADRA or some of these organizations to teach them how to use some of these platform tools. And while it's not super technical, they sometimes gloss over them because they're not CS students or they're not CS groomed. They're just perhaps basic IT.
Yep. And before we go on, I do want to point out that bottom section there. We do build all this as open source. We want to be able to not only empower that organization that we're actually communicating with, but others in that field. Like for animal shelters, our hope and intention would be that other shelters would be able to use this code as well and apply it. In this particular project, the code that Vinz and others built was actually able to integrate with a commonly used shelter application. And so the shelter could use that for a lot of what they needed to do. And then this was an add-on or an enhancement to that, especially with the mobile app, to be able to empower them to capture data out while they're working with animals.
The picture. There's Vince up in the corner up there, so it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, Vinz, tell us a bit about that picture.
Yeah, so pretty much this is durable. This is the lead volunteer, one of the lead volunteers.
I think she's staff.
Staff, yeah, on the project's client, MADRA. MADRA is this is a dog shelter, not MADRA from, like your animes. But yeah, so she's using the app on a Surface tablet that they just had that, right? It
Yeah,
wasn't
they
like
owned it,
yeah, they had a Surface tablet, and so it was the first time me just looking at her going through the UI and like clicking buttons, and then I'd look, I was like, that's a button I made, that's a screen I made, and then she did the exact thing that I thought she was gonna do, and she's using it right, like using it correctly. So this was like a really cool moment for me because I finally saw the thing that I made in the person that I made it, or in the hands of the person that I made it for, doing the thing that it was made for. So yeah, super cool moment. And also Jeff's back there, and Jeremy's back there.
And where was that picture taken?
Oh, that was taken in Galway, Ireland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to use the picture of Vince with the Guinness in his hand, but I decided not to. But essentially with MADRA, we're completing this. We have one more module we're supposed to be done this week, hopefully. But the idea is that we're trying to automate their paper-based solution. This is a small shelter, and basically the volunteers and staff are writing all the notes about the health of the dogs on a piece of paper, putting it in a book. The next crew would have to go sifting through all this information about the care and health of the dogs. We thought this would be a great opportunity to let's capture that information, give the opportunity to the staff and the volunteers to put this inside of an electronic system, do the reporting on it so that shelter managers or volunteers or anybody can take a look and see what the status is of these dogs so they can provide better care and help the animals and hopefully get them adopted sooner. So that's the idea of being able to automate this, remove all the paper process, remove the communication problems, and use the technology to build a solution for them that we can probably use at a different shelter too. So it's pretty exciting, and having Vince come and see it being used was fun.
Yeah, that was amazing. And just to put a little context in it, that entire project from the first meeting to the handoff, roughly 4 quarters, is that about right?
Actually, 4 quarters? No,
Was it
it was
3?
2 quarters.
Well, I thought it was. Oh,
In the
yeah.
summer.
In the summer, yeah. Anyway, so it's pretty quick to be able to deliver that.
So the next project, and that's in process, and some of your colleagues are participating in that, is called the Shelter Playgroup Alliance. They call it SPA. And what we're trying to do is build an internal web application for them to replace their Excel spreadsheet. So these IT organizations and these nonprofits will use Excel like crazy, or Google Docs or whatever. But it's not the right tool for the process, and they're getting confused, and the amount of time it takes to build the right pieces around it is just too much time. And if they could apply their time to helping with the behavioral aspects of the shelters, it would be much more beneficial. So we're in the process of creating, again, end-to-end, a web intranet front end with authentication and authorization. The web service that will provision the accounts into what they call Litmos is SAP, a large enterprise customer that does learning. And then the ability to watch and manage and make decisions based on the reporting of what's been captured about the students that are using the Shelter Playgroup Alliance training material. So this is pretty exciting. We'll hopefully wrap that up in a month. And then the next one is the Riverside Homeless Clinic, which is upcoming, where we're trying to build a IoT smart building solution. And the idea behind that is, can we leverage sensors in the building to help the office managers decide how are these spaces being used, the exam rooms, are they being fully utilized, do we need to build more exam rooms, do we understand how many people are in a room, etc. And then if there's any type of not so friendly things that they're doing in the bathrooms or in the exam rooms, like vaping or smoking cigarettes, they want to be alerted. So this is an exciting opportunity to build this solution and provide a platform to capture all this information. And so thinking farther ahead, once we build something like this, can we reuse this technology for other buildings? Can we reuse this technology to help other organizations with IoT devices? So I think this is a great platform, or a great stepping stone to provide more opportunities to do good for other nonprofits. I'm very excited about that, and we have, I think Dr. Linwood is the person who's heading that up at UC Riverside. Let's stop here and see if there's any questions or comments, just so that we could feel something. Because we go through these presentations, and at the very end, you have the Q&A, and I just forget what we're talking about. So, does anybody have any comments or questions before? Yes?
How do you get involved in one of these projects?
Vince, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, if you're around like the AC or like the Discord like last quarter, I sent out like applications for it. So that's like the #1 way to get involved. Are we gonna reopen applications anytime soon?
So it's a really good point. I need to talk with Elliot and Jed regarding making it a little bit more flexible so that people who are really passionate about and want to volunteer can sign up. I think this is because it's tied to actual funding, that they go through a process to make sure that the professors vet out the students. But ideally, if you want to help out, I wouldn't mind the participation. The only challenge is that this is really also a two-way street, meaning that I'm mentoring as well as, and Jeff is mentoring, as well as you guys are working with the clients. So too many people, I can't scale out that well. So we have to make sure that there's enough students to Jeremy ratio.
Yeah. But in my sophomore year, they had our like first round of people, and that's when I applied. And hopefully we'll see
But maybe there's a way that we can leverage the ACM club to volunteer and get involved. I mean, there's some other ideas that we had, and I think that's going to be later in the presentation. Very good question. You know, more people, the merrier. It's got to figure out how to get more mentors involved, because it is a good thing to have that mentor relationship and ratio with the students. Any other comments or questions? All right.
Also, I'm gonna say too, like for a project like this, it's a lot of you get a lot of that like dev work, but also you get a lot of that like project management work. And I'm thankful enough that Jeremy can do a lot of that project management for our projects, because like for me personally, I know like even doing your own personal project, grabbing all of these tasks and stuff, you just get lost. Like sometimes even sometimes for MADRA, one of my tasks is on like a Post-it note that's at home, and at one point I had one of my housemates like send a picture of what the Post-it note was.
Oh, I forgot.
Yeah, because I forgot what I had to do to actually get some feature out. But yeah, like a lot of the project is also figuring out the tooling for like DevOps and where all of the tasks go and what sprints look like. So just like that management side. Again, Jeremy said he can't scale, and he definitely can't scale multiple projects on top of that. So, yeah.
So, one of the things that I could do is reach out to some of my colleagues who are project managers who want to volunteer. That might be another opportunity too. So, we'll see how we can scale that part of it out. Yes.
Was there any point that you felt or like censored that I'm making some sort of social good impact to like society?
I mean, wouldn't you say like the first time you see them use even the smallest bit of it and improve what they're doing, that's just immediate feedback you get. That's what's so great about this and using an agile process, because just you're able to produce value to them so quickly, right? And you know it. Like, wouldn't you say you knew, even before this, you knew that they were getting something out of it, right?
Yeah, you could just see the databases fill up. Like every single day, there's like a bunch of entries for every single dog in the shelter. You're like, oh, they're using it.
Yeah, and you know, like, again, it was like a low bar, because they just had scraps of paper floating around their office before in every different format and manner. And they, you know, it was like they were collecting the data, but they had no way to really use it. And so with this system, I remember when she figured out that she could get on the system at home.
Yes.
She's like, what? I don't even have to go to the office? And you have to understand, this office is in the sticks. It's like 40 minutes from town to get out where they have the shelter. And so it was a huge gift to her to be able to do that. Yes?
I'm just curious, like, where do you like find these clients? Because I know like this one you went to like Ireland, so I was just like curious.
Yeah, that was an easy one, because see the woman in the left there? Yeah, that's my sister Teresa. She was a volunteer at that clinic, and we were just in Ireland. I go to Ireland a lot. And she's just talking about what a disaster it was trying to volunteer at that clinic and all the busy work they were doing. They felt like it was busy work, writing all these notes down. And she said, you know, it'd be really cool to have like a app that you could track. And we just kind of talk about it a bit when we were out for walks or whatever, and then it turned into this. Yeah, she was very excited to see it in operation that day too.
We have a kind of a slide to talk about that sharing success, because you'll see that how that one led to the SPA. It's a pretty nice leap. And then the SPA has touched over 600 shelters and humane societies in the world. And if we can finish this on time and be successful with it, it'll have a huge impact with all the shelters in the U.S. at least. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I would say that just even in the shelter dog care vertical, whatever you would call it, I mean, it's a very tight space. It seems like people know each other, and just building a product like this, especially that it's open source, doesn't cost anything to run, you're going to have people lining up when you really put it out there. Yeah.
Here's an example, and we'll walk you through kind of the big thing, but this is what we wanted to do is in that bullet there. I think we already discussed that. And we basically met with them kind of what we call a pre-sales approach. So think of it as kind of your hackathon. where you're talking to the potential client, building out something to demonstrate for them, and then executing on it. So sometimes hackathons just end after you win or lose or whatever, but we want to move it continuing on. And so the idea is that they had a vision of what it would be like. So this is just scratching the person who just came up with these wonderful ideas. That is their actual logbook. This is what they have to go ahead and write all their entries in. And then we create this simple mobile application to track all this information. Now, the next picture on the next slide, I think has a better view of what, and this is what Vinz created on the left-hand side. So when we think about looking at for nonprofits, what are the kind of low-hanging fruits that you can go out and reach and find? Well, one is if they're using paper. Anybody who's collecting paper, sometimes you want to do reports. We've seen it at one of my customers, NASCAR. They were writing up inspection reports on paper. And where does they get filed? In a cylindrical basket. They can't get any reports out of it. So this process of being able to capture this information is super great because now they can write everything up. So if you're looking for or volunteering at a nonprofit today or looking for opportunities, if they're writing things on paper, let's digitize it. Let's give them the power to produce reports. Let's put it in a repository that they can use elsewhere. This on this other side is the revised version of the Excel spreadsheet that they're using. It's an intranet application, and it has the person, the details of what training classes, how many extension courses, units, etc. If they've done donations, if they can go to in-person training with COVID information. So it's capturing all the stuff that they're trying to do in Excel, which is crazy hard to do if you are just working in Excel. It's not good. It's not a relational database, and that's what they really need here. So if you're looking for opportunities to help or to apply some of your computer background, look for nonprofits that are doing things with the wrong tool, or they're doing things in paper. And we have another slide that talks how you might be able to get started on your own, okay?
Go back one slide real quick. I want to talk about how we've been really fortunate with Engineering for Good and the people we've worked with. I would say as you're working with customers, not all of them are going to be the right fit. You have to have somebody that's really engaged. Even though the work that you're doing for them is effectively being donated, you have to have a willing partner. With MADRA, we were really fortunate. If you look at the top right there, you see that she took the time to really diagram what she thought was important, and she was pretty good at critical thinking about how to lay it out. And that really served as the initial roadmap for the project. You know, if she hadn't been able to organize her thoughts that way, right, it would have been a much harder project. So I'd say with the project so far, we've been pretty lucky with everybody that we've worked with. They've been pretty organized and engaged.
You'll find that the nonprofit people, they're passionate about what they're doing. You have to have that passion because you're not doing it for money.
Right.
And so any assistance on the IT side is met with enthusiasm. So they really like to see the students, they encourage them, they understand that there's a education and work-life balance that you have to have. So they're not putting super amount of pressure on you to, okay, we need it yesterday. So that's different than what Jeff and I's experiences have been with enterprise customers.
Right.
They want it yesterday, you gotta get it done, and you just work with a large team to get it done. They're a little bit more compassionate, they're a little bit more easygoing because they know that you're volunteering your time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good thing, it's a good feeling to know that they appreciate what you're doing.
Right. There's almost a bit of disbelief that we're doing it in the way we are, right?
Yeah.
Like at the beginning, they just can't believe what kind of resources that we're offering. So
It's pretty exciting, yeah. Okay, I think we're good. I mean, and then the other low-hanging fruit ideas are, once we capture this information, let's present it to them in a way that's important and impactful for them. So here's an example of these reports that we create for MADRA. One is more the daily health report, and one is talking about the health of the shelter. How many kennels are dirty overnight? How many dogs are missing entries? How many of them have some issues with their, the kennel coughs and so forth. So it gives the shelter managers and the stakeholders the opportunity to execute on these problems as opposed to, okay, I gotta look through a stack of papers and try to figure out what the problems are. Yeah. So this is a huge benefit for them, and we hope to do that with the other solutions too, is to generate these types of business intelligence reports that they can take action with. And that's the power of the data being captured electronically, because you can do this with it.
Right, and the Power BI tool in the platform is really easy for them to work with. All the data is aggregated in a way that they literally can just drag and drop reporting for the most part. So it's been really powerful for them.
Okay. Art of the possible. What can we do besides just those low-hanging fruit? Can we use machine learning because we're capturing all this data? Can we use our AI to do it? And my video is not
It's not there.
and got lost.
Oh.
So I don't know if it's just captured it. You can't play
Because
it.
of the way I pasted it in. I didn't.
No, it wasn't you. Well, I don't know. Okay. Well, anyways, this gentleman here created some glasses to do cognitive services. Basically, the idea is that it gives them a description of what's going on. He is part vision impaired, and so these glasses that he created allows him to click a button on it, capture the picture goes through cognitive services, and it describes what he actually sees. And there's a lot of subtle things that he can gain from that knowledge, because facial recognition to some extent of if they're displeased, if they're bored looking, then he could change his responses. So it was an exciting video. We might have to revise that in the deck, but that's my bad for embedding a video in there as opposed to putting a link.
You want me to try to just look up the video real quick?
If you can find it, it's okay. I mean, I think it's all right.
We're probably okay.
Yeah, but it's an exciting time for us, and so there's opportunities to make a difference with what you guys are doing and what you guys are studying in school. So see if we can apply some of these great ideas to something that you might be passionate about. And that kind of ties into your old VR AR presentation that you were doing.
Yeah,
from
Professor Chan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sharing success, I think to your point about how do you find these opportunities, they kind of start finding us now. Meaning that when you build one of these solutions and you start sharing it with people, they go, oh, maybe I can use it for this opportunity. So I do have conversations with my old friends who are ex-Microsoft employees or employees today, and one works with orphanages. And they say, why can't we use something like the shelter application to track behavioral things within the orphanages? In fact, there's an opportunity because the orphanage that he works at has a farm. Why don't we do something with the farm and build IT sensors to measure soil, the water, the fertilizer, so that we can have the children go out there and work the farm. So there's opportunities there. Other shelters, as I mentioned, the SPA, that was because of our success with MADRA. They got us hooked up with SPA, who MADRA participates with, and now that opens their door to many more shelters around the world. Braver Angels, I had conversations with other friends who are more really socially impact type of things, which bridges the partisan divide, talks about being able to take left or right people and have them in a conversation and have a nice dialogue as opposed to, these argumentative dialogues. And then this Cal RCV, which is the ranked choice voting. And some of these projects are kind of just moving data back and forth, but there's an opportunity to help in an IT fashion that they need assistance, they need work to be done, and maybe we could open up some of these opportunities to them in the future. But we'll see. There's quite a bit of, I think the IoT one will open up more doors. I think that there's opportunities there, and I think based on that, we can apply some of the capture data, apply some machine learning around that, define what a situation might be where we think there's too many people in an office. Can we measure the CO2 levels? Can we measure the humidity and temperature and CO2 to determine whether this is a good or bad condition to transmit viruses and so forth between these people? There's opportunities for us to do those type of wonderful things. So that's part of it. And one of the other ideas that Vinz had come up to us and talked about was promoting EFG. And so can the ACM perhaps build a website and have all these particular pieces on there? That would be really good. Could we, if we build a solution and it's successful at the clinic, can we use that platform to provide data for courses at UC Riverside? It's supposed to, more static information where we're using real-time information. Can we go cross-teaming with real hardcore engineering, electronic teams to build sensors for us in ways we've never been able to use? Can we use marketing teams?
Right,
to
yeah,
work with
like
us?
actually expand beyond the engineering school and work with cross-functional teams across the university for marketing, business inputs and other uses, right? Beyond just, coding and IT and data science. So.
Yeah. Any comments or thoughts on that? That's it. All right, so how would you get started? How would you want to get started? So, nonprofit platforms. I threw up, because I used to work for Microsoft, to get the first plug. But there are grants that Microsoft provides. If you have a nonprofit organization that you want to apply to, then they get Office, and this is what we did for MADRA and the other SPA. They have signed up for a nonprofit. They get the Power Platform, which has the databases and the UI and the reporting. If you need to do more Azure-based work, Microsoft provides a $3,500 US dollars Azure services per year, which is nice. So we need to set up a key vault to secure their secrets, and so we need to leverage that Azure platform. AWS has nonprofits. A lot of it seems right now is the infrastructure as a service. So you're going to get the VMs, et cetera, which is really good. But they also provide, like Salesforce, the operational side of things. If you want to track the volunteers and their time, if you want to see where your funds are going to, then these are things that are available for nonprofits if you're interested in helping and supporting. So you can go out to the websites and look for these opportunities. If you have a nonprofit organization that you want to, dedicate or point them to these opportunities. All right. Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions, guys? I know there's finished right on time at 51, but if anybody has any last questions, because I think some classes are going to start at 6 o'clock.
No worries.
So if you guys have to go dip for classes,
Grab food first.
yeah, go for that. Oh, 100%. Grab some food. But if anybody has any,
Wait, please sign in, write your name, student ID, and your signature, please.
yeah, so we get reimbursed for the for the pizzas. But does anybody else have any more questions? Any questions?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm really interested in doing some random startups, focusing on the software. And the difficult thing for me sometimes is finding technology that I can use for free. Just because it's, in a way, I'm doing a nonprofit, because there's no way I can make any money.
Right.
And sometimes it easily escapes me, and I end up paying for hosting services. Have you ever run into a situation in which you had to pivot in the technology you're using? Or what are some good tips for finding, if you've done any hosting technology that's easy to use?
Yeah, if you go back a slide, I think that kind of helps, because you can sign up for the Microsoft side for developer accounts and some of these things and get the items for free. But to your point about pivoting, yes, we had to. In the case of the Microsoft Business Premium, it only supports 10 users, and in fact, the BI reporting is free. And if you signed up for the premium, which gives you a lot more capabilities, then it would cost quite a bit. So we went the free version, and we came up with a fix to keep them free. So we had to pivot away from the premium version to use the free version. But it worked for the customer. The customer, if you talk with the customer and you'd explain why you're using it, then you will certainly, hopefully get their buy-in on it, because free is better than charging them. Yeah, so yes, you will have to pivot.
I have a follow-up, but I don't want to.
No, this is good. I mean, if you take a look at some of these resources, you should be able to get some developer version that's available. In fact, I think there's student versions too. That'll give you some type of funding for a period of time where you can do development on hosted platforms. Okay, anybody else before he comes back to that?
So if I have like some certain ideas that I want to like make, like, for example, code out, what process would you recommend to like follow?
So do you have a particular customer, or are you just you have no customer in mind? And maybe we could take this offline too, because we don't have a problem spending some time with you to go through that. But ideally, what I would think at a high level, and Jeff, you can chime in also, is that if you have a customer, it's a lot easier to build that momentum because now you are working with the customer. If you're coming up with an idea, that's fine too, to do social work. But you'll have to gather some requirements and then see how you can structure technically with some of these free platforms, and then try it out and build it out in yourself. And there's a lot of tutorial information that's available out there on these platforms, so you can use that. But I think understanding the requirements is the first part of it, and just not going in and jumping in and building something without understanding what the benefit is on building this out.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to build in a vacuum, right? And so
Unless it's
having-
a coursework assignment, unless you are graded on it. Like, you gotta build this.
Any other questions?
You wanted to ask your follow-up?
Yeah. I think a similar situation that I think I might have been in to you is you're often working with kind of like your clients. And I think in a way when creating software, you're constantly trying to talk with your users and see how to improve stuff. Do you have any kind of tips or information in creating a good environment in which you can talk with a user or a client and get good feedback? Because I feel like that's really difficult.
I mean, I'll take that. Like, you're right? And it's just, again, finding an engaged client. So assuming you have that, the key is really, in my experience, is being very visual and being very available, really, and just iterating as quickly as possible with them. Because really, at the end of the day, in my experience building software, no matter how well you describe it, until it's actually something that you can put in front of them and use, you're not going to really have strong feedback from them. But yeah, I mean, that's effectively what we've done, not only in the nonprofit, but just in our daily lives, right? Working with clients.
I mean, I would ask, what's in it for them?
Yeah.
That's if they don't get any benefit out of it, unless they don't want to do it out of the kindness of their heart, and I mean, they want something in return, and the people that want something in return are going to be the ones who, will spend time with you and give you feedback and look at your code and something like that. So these nonprofits, they want to save time and money and mismanagement and all of that. So they're like, go ahead. We've been struggling trying to build this ourselves. You go for it. And then when we can demonstrate that we can, that's a good feeling.
Yeah, and I would say that there's always clients that are going to be really engaged. As I mentioned, my background's in automotive. There are automotive dealers that will talk to me at 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning because they really are passionate about it. And it's not even their company. They just get benefits out of what we create for them, right? And they're the best partners, right? Because if you make them happy, they're like in the corporate world, they're happy to share the news of your product with others. And the nonprofit side is the exact same. We were fortunate with MADRA to have really engaged partners in that project who were able to help us guide it pretty quickly.
I mean, if you guys still have questions, we certainly can follow up. I mean, so Vince, you have our contact information. If you guys want a session that just talks about engaging with a client or coming up with a project idea, follow up. I mean, we're available to set up a Zoom call, although my Zoom ends at 40 minutes all the time.
Yeah, you'll get hung up on, but
Yeah. You got a 40-minute window.
Yeah, better make it good.
Yeah, but we're here. I mean, if you like these ideas and you're kind of passionate about it too, we certainly would like to help.
Yeah, that's about it for our general meeting. We have like a bunch of stuff here, but if you're here, you probably already know that. But thank you for coming, guys. I appreciate it. Make sure you grab some pizza on your way out.